Welcome to Mom Talk, the talk show for mom. I'm Genevieve Carlefebvre and I will be your host today. We are talking today about what is co-regulation and why is it so important with Jen Sinclair. Jen is a registered therapeutic counselor and she is the owner of Wiseheart Counselling. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much, Genevieve.
So Jane, we hear about this a lot right now. This is up in the air. We hear it. I read about this on social media, but my first question for you is, what is actually self-regulation these days, and what's the difference between self-regulation and co-regulation?
Okay, self-regulation is the ability to calm our own nervous system, which is really important when we're stressed out, and this is particularly important for parents. Co-regulation is when we use our own nervous system to help someone else settle their nervous system. So when a child is having an outburst of some sort, big emotions, we use our closeness, our tone of voice, breathing to help them settle their nervous system.
Okay, so why are we so triggered? Why is it so difficult for us to keep our cool when our children are having a hard time?
Well, a lot of us did not receive co-regulation from our parents, unfortunately. Parents are stressed, maybe they didn't learn from their parents, and so we go into these regular day-to-day parenting scenarios very triggered. And, in that state, it's very hard to calm our children. So now both of us are, as my sister would call it, peeking and freaking. Everybody is up here, and the parent is not able to help the child calm down.
Okay, good. So now I want to know what parents can do. They need help. They are having a hard time regulating themselves. So where do we start with when we're triggered like that?
Good question. So the very first thing to do, I guess, is to have an understanding of the nervous system. So what is the sympathetic nervous system? That's kind of our fight or flight. So when we're triggered and we feel like we might yell or scream, that's when we're in fight or flight. So essentially learning to recognize that is number one. And when our children are unable to console themselves or settle themselves, they are also in fight or flight. So the very first thing to do is to step away and use some self-regulation tools. So deep breathing is probably the best one. Step away and take, 6 big breaths. So that when you go back to the child, you're calm, and then you can sort of model that calmness for them, and then even, keep breathing when you're with them so that they see, okay, mom or dad are breathing and they're calming themselves. They're not thinking these things, but subconsciously their nervous system is sort of down-regulating and sort of calming itself because we are calm. That's actually how kids learn to settle their own nervous systems, is through co-regulation. So when a baby's born and they're crying and they're distraught, mom or dad is holding them, breathing, not trying to distract them, not trying to, ooh, look at this toy. Breathe, relax, and then they'll sort of learn over time to regulate their own nervous system.
Okay, I like this. It's kind of a little bit of a meditation.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that's why meditation is so great, is because it's a tool we can use to get out of fight or flight. We spend a lot of our day in fight or flight when we're driving around in our cars, or, even before coming in to do this interview.
Yes,
I had to
take
some breaths and kind of like get in the zone. So the state that we want to be in is rest and digest. That's when we're able to connect with people. We're in our frontal lobe, we're able to think complex thoughts. When we are in fight or flight, we're in our sort of more primitive part of our brain, and we are in like a self-protective mode. So we can't really connect, we can't think. And so that's where that self-regulation is so important.
Yes. So we talk a lot about attachment these days, right? So how can we help our child co-regulate themselves, but also keeping a strong attachment? This is a big question.
And it's a great one. It's a really great one. So practicing these skills, staying close when the child is dysregulated. Again, not trying to distract them, certainly not, yelling at them to calm down. I mean, we all know that that's not an effective strategy, but I mean, you know, a lot of times when we are very stressed out, especially if we're new parents, and again, if we didn't learn these things, and then if you layer in trauma that we might have experienced as a kid, it just can get really heated. So the attachment piece is, you know, learning how to deal with our own nervous system and our own sort of emotions and triggers, and then just being that calming presence for our kids, because over time they learn that, ooh, I'm distressed, but I'm okay. I can get myself back on track. Again, subconscious, but that's what they're learning when they see us do it. If they see us yell, scream, you know, slam the door, rant and rave, which, you know, I hate to admit, but I've done 1,000,001 times.
We all did it.
Right?
Let's say the real things.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, it's
yeah.
just parenting these days
we have a bad day.
Very stressful, exactly. And, you know, but the more that we do that, the more our children do not know how to regulate themselves. So it almost gets worse. It doesn't get better.
So is it okay to say to a child, Mommy's really struggling right now, even if it's not showing necessarily, like, Mommy's really struggling right now, I'm just gonna go sit in my room and read for a little bit, or I'm gonna do X, Y, Z. So, because sometimes we try to hide everything, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that?
I think that's a great strategy. I think, you know, if the kid is very young, I would keep the timeout very short. As they get older, if you need a little bit more time, that's okay, because they sort of know that you're going to come back. But I think that letting our kids see us process our emotions is wonderful. We're not, you know, a mountain, or we're a rock. We're not a rock. You know, we have these emotions. Sometimes we struggle to control them or to, you know, get out in front of them. I used to do this all the time with my boys. I'd be like, I got to step out for a minute because I'm gonna yell in a moment. You know, it's a process, like so many things. Initially, I just yelled because I couldn't catch it in time. Over time, you start to learn what's happening in your body. So for me, it would be like tightness in my chest or something happening in my stomach or my legs, and I'm like, I'm gonna blow in a minute. So I would be like, I'm just gonna step into my room. Everything's fine. I'd close the door. Breathe, 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 and then go back. Mm-hmm. And by that point, I'm a little bit more calm. I know that what I say is not going to come out as yelling and screaming, and they will then be able to actually hear me better. Because the other thing when you're in fight or flight, and if I am, they probably are, you can't process verbal, you can't hear properly, literally. So there's almost no point in trying to have conversations when people are in that state. So to your question, that's a great strategy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned about time out. Mm-hmm. I hear a lot about time in now. So what do you think, and what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, agreed. That they are, you know, we hear a lot about both of those. Time in is staying with the child. So if the child, let's say, is acting out,
if it's safe.
Or having,
if it's safe. Yeah.
Well, I don't recommend timeouts for children at all. I'm not a parenting expert, by the way. I'm a counselor and I deal a lot with the nervous system. But when you put a child on timeout, they don't have that help to regulate. So that's why it's not something that they really recommend anymore. They recommend a time in, which is where you stay close, you breathe, and you model self-regulation. And subconsciously, there's a connection happening and they're learning to co-regulate. So that's why the time in is much more recommended these days.
And we keep the connection.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
awesome.
that's the most important thing in parenting. You know, connect. I would say they say connect and then correct.
Yes.
And I would say regulate, connect, and then correct.
You see, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I think that's a key piece.
That's a good way to finish this interview. Thank you so much, Jane. Where can we find you?
On my website, wiseheartcounselling.com, or my socials are Wiseheart Counselling BC.
Awesome. For everyone that is listening to us today, to contact us or to view all our available episodes, please go to mom-talk.ca. You can also find us on YouTube at Mom Talk, and of course, under the Tri-Cities Community Television. We also have a podcast, which is Mom Talk, formerly Parent Talk Podcast. If you're an expert, we want to hear from you, so don't hesitate to contact us. Mom Talk would like to thank our generous sponsor, Tri-Cities Community Television. We also would like to thank our community sponsor, La Société Francophone de Maillardville, because sometime we're going to have some French interviews in here. So if you're a mom and you like this episode or you can help another mom, we're inviting you to share this episode with her. Always remember, it's important to laugh, keep learning, cherish your village, and be true to yourself. I'm Genevieve Carlefebvre, and thank you for joining us. Bye.
Visit us at mom-talk.ca to access our podcast library and stay up to date with our latest content. Follow us on social media for more tips, hacks, and inspiration. Thank you for joining us on this exciting journey of motherhood.